Hello all, welcome to Sand Compounding. This is Sandeep, Anand. I'm starting a new series called 20 for 2030. And what does that even mean? For investors, in investing, the formula of compounding, which is very powerful, and the formula is P into 1 plus R by 100 whole to the power N. And N is an exponential factor. N is nothing but, we all know, it's a time invested, time we invest in the capital is invested in a business, or the tenure as we can call. And the tenure or longevity of our investment is very important because if we make investments in businesses that can sustain for 10 to 12 years with a good level of growth and at the right valuation, we are made home. The returns on the capital invested would be very high. Now, how do we find businesses which can run and which has such longevity of 10, 12 years, especially in today's world of disruption? Every business is getting disrupted. Erstwhile, no wonder Warren Buffett, the legendary investor, used to find businesses which are least disruptive and that can run for a long time with growth, and he called it as moat. While moat investing, I don't know if it's really that relevant in today's generation because all businesses are getting disrupted with the advent of digital and mobile and internet. Now, identifying such businesses is a very difficult task, and I have tried my best to find out 20 such businesses which can pay way till 2030, and come 2030, in hindsight, these businesses would have been great to hold for such a longevity period. Now, how do we find these businesses? I've applied the principle of inversion, which I learned from Charlie Munger, and we look forward to 2030, and when we look back in hindsight, the inversion principle, based on that, what businesses could and why those businesses could sustain till that period is what I've done. So here are such 20 stocks, and one most important thing, not in investing, not all businesses are great investments at all point of time, but most point of time. So there could be reasons being valuation is one important factor which can control the time when we enter into a business. If there are frothy valuations, our returns would be mediocre. So it's very important to identify great longevity, great businesses which has longevity and at the same time that has good growth and the right valuation. So, but this could be a blueprint or a watch list that we can use to identify, and when the correction happens or recession happens, these great businesses could be a great entry point, could give a great entry point. Hope this gets interesting as we move on. One such business as part of 20 for 2030 is Naspers spun off technology firm called Prosus. Prosus is a business holding company that got recently listed in Amsterdam Stock Exchange, and this is a spin-off from the largest Johannesburg listed firm called Naspers. Naspers, as we all know, is a leading technology investor and venture firm run by Bob Van Dijk, and they were known for its biggest holding and investment in Tencent when Tencent was a very small web business. And today Naspers has become so big that it has spun off its international holdings and put it in a listing recently through an IPO in Amsterdam, and this has now become the biggest firm that's called Prosus. Prosus is biggest firm or technology firm in European stock exchange, and Prosus is a very intelligent way of playing the whole gaming, social media and payments giant Tencent, because Prosus owns almost 31% of Tencent today, and they also have very wise investments across Southeast Asia, and even in India they have largest holdings in Baiju, which is valued at around $5 billion. They have investment in Swiggy, which is valued around $2 billion, which is a delivery startup and has become a unicorn. And there are many other firms in Russia like Mail.ru, and in other European delivery food chains like Delivery Hero in German, which is German based. So this is a very nice portfolio technology holding firm that has lot of potential unicorns and startups that could become big like Tencent. And Tencent itself is a holding firm that way. Tencent has a lot of holdings and investments across technology firms in the globe, like the Activision Blizzard and many other Chinese firms like the Tencent Music and Spotify, and there are many other firms that Tencent has holdings in. Tencent is valued around roughly $350 billion, and Prosus is valued around roughly $100 billion when it got got into the IPO. Prosus has not moved up since its IPO price, and it's let's analyze why Prosus and Tencent together is a great way to play the future for the next decade. And Tencent has many other businesses, and they are the leaders in the gaming with almost 30% market share. The whole gaming industry is around $120 billion, and there is a huge potential, and that's precisely why it's part of 2030. But let's analyze deep into Tencent and Prosus as a business firm. So about Prosus management and business overview. So Prosus is the international technology investment holdings of Naspers, which is the largest listed company in Johannesburg Stock Exchange, which is in South Africa. And Prosus recently did IPO in 2019 as a reason of spin-off from Naspers, which is basically they spun off the international holdings of Naspers into a different company. They listed it in Amsterdam exchange. Now Naspers owns 25% of Prosus after IPO. Naspers had 31% stake in Tencent, the world's biggest video game company, and it's also home to in China's hugely popular WeChat social media platform, which is about $130 billion worth now. And really, the Tencent has bolstered Naspers' remarkable growth story. Now, Naspers CEO is Bob Van Dijk, and he considers Prosus as the future of global tech investing, especially with the international focus. There are lots of future potential IPO holdings in Prosus portfolio. So I have put a screenshot of all the key holdings of Prosus in different business segments. All are relating to technology and internet. So we have here classifieds space. They have OLX, investments in OLX, which is an Indian based classified space for buying and selling. Then they have PayU, which is a fintech firm like the Paytms, which is again India based. Then there are other food delivery business, which is the in thing now, like Swiggy, which is India based. They have Delivery Hero, which is European based delivery service, which is based out of Berlin, Germany. And then we all know Tencent, and they also have holdings in Mail.ru Group. Mail.ru Group is leading internet company in Russia. Both that includes classifieds and a whole suite of services and products they have. Now there are other ventures also that Prosus is invested in, like Byju's. Byju's is becoming big in India, which is a learning platform. It's more like a training, coaching, and they have their applications for learning. And it's become recently multi-billion-dollar worth in terms of private space equity. And then there are other learning platforms like Udemy, Code Academy, and all that. So they have a lot of other holdings in different dispersed, segregated business segments like Make My Trip, which is a travel portal in India. Now the next slide talks about the main holding, which is Tencent. So Prosus is basically a proxy to playing the emerging nations which are leading, like China and India and Russia. They're leading emerging nations where there are leading technology firms which could become unicorns or which could become multi-billion-dollar firms. And Tencent, their holding in Tencent is a classic story, right? And when Naspers, which is a whole parent company of Prosus, invested in Tencent when it was so small, and the Tencent went on becoming so big that Naspers had become the biggest company in Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and they had to really spin off Prosus as all the international stake. Now Prosus has around 31% stake in Chinese Shenzhen-based tech titan and world's largest gaming publisher, Tencent. So, which itself is a tech investing company with its investments in around 700 global tech and consumer firms. So, Tencent itself, one thing we need to appreciate here is Tencent itself is a large conglomerate holding company which has so many investments across China and Southeast Asia and the Indian subcontinent, and they themselves can even become much bigger from from where they are today in the next decade. And Prosus is a very good way to play because they, in addition to Tencent, they have many other holdings which are mutually exclusive from Tencent's holdings, like Baiju's and many other Mail.ru and other firms. So Prosus is a very good way to play across, is a good segmental play across all the private equity space and some of the public space like Tencent. Now Tencent, coming to their market cap, they are $400 billion worth. Ma Huateng is a chairman CEO, a visionary guy. They went on to become the largest firm in China. They are listed in Hong Kong market. Tencent has invested in a total of 700 global tech and consumer investments over last 10 years and has 46 unicorns in its portfolio. So that's what I said. Tencent itself is a big, large holding company that has so many investments across the new space, new emerging space in technology. Tencent has around 30% of its investments outside China. Now 70% is invested in China. Chinese internet titan had a bumper year with around 16 portfolio firms going public in 2018, which is a staggering number. Like 16 portfolio of what holdings they had went public. Some of them like iQIYI, which is the leading music streaming. Tencent Music is another IPO that happened. There are a slew of local internet companies which filed IPO last year. Then Meitung Dianping, the online ticketing portal Maoyan, and Tencent Music, many of them went public last year, which increases its market capitalization, because when these holding firms become public, they will go on to demand that premium in terms of listing, and that way that indirectly increases Tencent's valuation. Now Tencent's business segments are pictorially represented there. They have 4 streams. They have music like QQ Music, Tencent Music Entertainment, and then there is social and messaging that's known to everyone, the WeChat, which is the largest messaging service. WeChat is not only the messaging service, they have a suite of products, like the adjunct one, which is a financial service, is called WeChat Pay or Tencent Pay they call it. That's an online payment stream, which is Chinese largest fintech fintech player, like Alipay. Alipay is the other area. So between Alipay and Tencent, they rule the they rule the whole payments fintech industry in China, that is online payments. And gaming, of course, we know that they are the leader in the gaming space, and we'll see that gaming specifically focused what they do in each of these business segments, what they do in the next couple of slides. Now the next slide talks about their key products and services in China. The focus is messaging, chatting and messenger, then that is P2P messaging, and then they have cloud, which they recently ventured into, and they also have their payments tech, which is the Tencent Pay. Now QQ is their instant messaging. It looks like it's more like a play on the consumer space with enabling people to chat and do video chat and all sort of socializing way. It's a social app, and they have even online social games. People can play games socially, streaming music, shopping, blogs, movies, you name it. I mean, any sort of consumer related day-to-day activity is carried out on this WeChat platform. They have around 1 billion monthly active users. They call it MAUs, and the AI enabled features also is embedded to attract young users, especially in the Chinese New Year greeting space. Now Weixin and WeChat messaging services with 1 billion users. So that's a whopping number, 1 billion users. That's almost a population of or 3/4 of the population of China, and they have higher stickiness among young users. The launch of mini programs accelerated adoption among users across retail, commerce and lifestyle. Then there is WeChat Pay, they call it Tenpay, erstwhile payments, financial services, again a fintech. That's 100% growth in payments business driven by commercial transaction volume of Weixin Pay and leading mobile payment platform. Tenpay is the leading online payment platform in China with 40% market share. This could be debated because Alipay is neck and neck tied in the terms of market share. 1 billion people in China uses WeChat Messenger, which is more than just a messenger. It's similar to the WhatsApp Messenger globally. WeChat is a whole ecosystem. That's a difference for Chinese population. That's a difference from how they stand out from WhatsApp. So WeChat embodies everything that's integrated within them, like a WePay. They have the gaming, they have the social chatting, everything. Now Tencent Cloud, which is a recent venture, now has around 35% market share. In no time they picked the market share in Chinese cloud market. Tencent Cloud lends out its cloud storage and computing power to small and medium-sized businesses. Now let's focus on global gaming part. So they have global gaming investments, making Tencent undisputed global gaming monopoly. So they are the undisputed leader globally in terms of gaming. Gaming has become a big industry. In last year alone, it's grown by around $150 billion. So it's a huge total addressable market size, and they have investments like across all the leaders for that matter. Tencent holds 100% stake in Riot Games, who has published League of Legends, which is earning roughly $1.5 to $2 billion per year. They have Epic Games, the much celebrated Fortnite. Everyone knows about that. Fortnite is earning around $2.5 billion per year, and Tencent has 40% stake in that. Then PUBG, which is again a very famous publisher in gaming, they have around 11% stake. And then there is Activision Blizzard, which is a US-based gaming giant. They have around 5% stake in them. Then there is Supercell, they have 84% stake. It's a famous game like Clash of Clans. Then there is Kakao, which is a 13.5%. It's a South Korean gaming giant and PUBG distributor also in South Korea. Now, entire gaming industry is a big potential for growth in the next decade. Now, that's something we will discuss in the last slide, why I think Tencent is part of my 20 list for 2030. Then there is other downstream things like music and media, like Tencent owns 7.5% in Spotify, which is a Swedish-based, we all know, it's a music streaming and a music library for technology-based platform. And then there is Tencent Music, which is itself valued at $19 billion. Now, they also have investments in the new and upcoming technology space, which are the in thing now, like the autonomous cars and the electric vehicles. Now they have 5% stake in Tesla itself, which is a US-based EV maker, 15% stake in Ola, which is an Indian ride-hailing firm. They have 13.5% in NIO, which is a Chinese EV maker, and then 7.5% in Gojek, which is an Indonesian ride-hailing. So basically, they have the venture into all autonomous cars and ride-hailing and electric vehicles. Now, AI and machine learning, that's other upcoming technology space that's capturing the world and business segments by Hans. And Tencent's U2 lab is a leader in the field of machine learning. It's credited with dozens of leading technologies in image, face, and audio analysis. Facial recognition and facial security has become very prominent in China, especially all the leading ones like Baidu and Tencent and everyone are investing big time. And they are already pretty matured compared to US and other developed markets in terms of their faceless IDs and facial recognitions and all of that. Now, they are the largest investor in UBTech, and they also have high investments in healthcare AI platform like Mying. Now, there are revenues and profitability segment-wise analysis. Now, revenues, Prosus grew. We are talking about Prosus here coming back. They grew at 30% in FY19, generating a revenue of $18.3 billion. Now, which grew at 50% in FY18, garnering a revenue of $15.6 billion. Now, their trading profits, the profits are more like very vulnerable to the market capitalization. They are more mark to market in terms of their holding, and that varies a lot in terms of determining profit. So we don't have a consistent compounder here. It's more like the trading profits, what they get, and the dividends they get in terms of their holdings like Tencent, which is huge again. Now, trading profits grew 21% at $3.1 billion in FY19. They lost $120 million cash flow due to investments in growth businesses, although there is 40% improvement in free cash flow over FY18. Now, Tencent had revenues of $13 billion, that's growing by 21%, and had profits of roughly $2.6 billion, growing by 35%, primarily driven by gaming, fintech, and advertising in China. Now, Tencent, when it grows, it helps because they pay a healthy dividend to the holding company Prosus, and then Prosus get the that as part of their cash flow. Balance sheet analysis, free cash flow and capital allocation ratios. Let's just quickly see how it is. It's a newly listed company, not much of history is there in terms of their capital allocation, but we know their holdings, which are all very prominent and futuristic in terms of their investments that Prosus has. Today it's worth around $100 billion in terms of market cap. So there is a disparity where Prosus market cap is $100 billion. Their holding in Tencent itself, it's if you just calculate that, it's close to 130 billion, 140 billion dollars. Now, whatever reason, it's a holding company, so there could be the reason where the valuation is not caught up with Tencent. But anyway, based on Nasper's holdings, this is the value, and then there are cash positions like they hold $9 billion cash, they have $3 billion debt, $6 billion net cash, and then free cash flow, they lost $120 million due to investments in 2019. They can very well get re-rated considering the potential investments, the IPOs that's all lined up, and just catching up with Tencent's valuation itself could be a huge winner there. Now, why I think Prosus plus Tencent would be still a great business to hold in hindsight when we look back in 2030. Although it's a large company, it's the largest in China in terms of their holding. It's the largest. Naspers is the largest in Johannesburg, South Africa. But then still, they have the monopoly. They have created such a large conglomerate, and they have the muscle power to invest and create more niche and more new areas of technology investments. Now, the key area of focus on Prosus is its Tencent holdings and indirectly a play on the burgeoning gaming industry. Research firm Newzoo predicts the video game industry will bring in around $152 billion this year. That's 2019 and 2020. And with the advent of 5G and digital streaming, gaming industry is going to be even bigger canvas to ride on. Now, the migration from a console and title-based business to an ecosystem driven by the expansion of digital and social has led to the surge, and Tencent is right there as a global monopoly in the gaming industry. The streaming of the gaming industry, the streaming of the games rather, through the different new channels like YouTube and new channels that Tencent has, that could be even bigger. Tencent could do this, play this new streaming business, streaming of the games real time, and the live events are becoming even more prominent in the gaming industry. Now there are competitions real time where people have the world championships in terms of many of the gaming, and they're getting rewarded very high, and that's become very popular where people do this compete and do the real time gaming competitions and championships, and that real streaming would be even more prominent once the 5G sets its pace. Digital payments and fintech explosion is going to be even more, with all retailing, consumer spending and cross-border settlements happening through digital and mobile channels. Now, Prosus, through its fintech investments, PayU, Remitly, Citrus in India, growing at 50% CAGR over last 2 years. India is again another country where they're leapfrogging the complete physical or brick and mortar banking space. The fintech is fast catching up. PayU is one of the leader there, like after Paytm, and they're growing very fast. Now, WeChat Pay and Tenpay could be other big payments leaders they're already leaders in China with 40% market share and serving 1 billion WeChat users, but there is still a long way to go in terms of growth. They have a huge stake in all leading food delivery platforms. Delivery platforms is going to be bigger in the next decade because almost the adoption is global. Everyone are benefiting from this, and there is a huge potential like Swiggy, Delivery Hero, iFood all becoming big. Even in US we can see Grubhub and DoorDash and Uber Eats, everyone becoming big. Overall revenue growth of food delivery has been growing at around 100%. Now they have presence in all classifieds leaders across emerging economies like India, Brazil. Also they started OLX, then Russia, Mail.ru, Letgo in US. There are many. These are all fast growing segments totally. And there are investments in Chinese internet tech and consumer sectors through Tencent, which indirectly has investments in these businesses. China will be the largest economy most probably by 2030, and that will benefit, the growth will benefit the largest companies like Tencent. Now, investment in next largest economy, India, across business segment, India is poised to become third or fourth or fifth largest economy in the next 10-15 years. So they will get benefited out of that as well. I mean, they are right there across all business segments like travel, education, like Baiju and fintech, classifieds, food delivery, etc. So these are telltale signs to see what are the things to come up in the next decade, and it's a clear telltale sign that Tencent is going to become even much more bigger, and Prosus is going to become even bigger with their investments across all the segments, all the technology segments, and their focus clearly. One thing we can notice, although it's listed in Amsterdam and it's a South African based company, they are clearly, all the investments are spanning across China and India. That is a clear indication that we can take out. And with the growth of these two big economies in the next decade, emerging economies in the next decade, Prosus is going to get benefited a lot. Hope this was useful.